Good morning, Jim Townsend here. My website is at townsend.b. I also have a website at gentiledefenseleague.org, net and com. If you go to gentiledefenseleague.net, that's the book that I write called Without Prejudice. If you click on the link, Fire the RCMP, you'll see why I want to fire this foreign-controlled army out of my country and prohibit them from providing law enforcement services to the Canadian people. These people are foreign drug dealers. The criminals have taken over the functions of our law enforcement agencies, and they are destroying our country. And I want these criminals out of my country. Now, I write missives about what it is that I'm talking about. One such missive is this: God busted by the RCMP for growing pot. It's one page, so I'll just read it to you and then I'll make a second part to this video. The Bible is very explicit about marijuana plants. In fact, you need look no further than the first page to see what God says about them. I will use quotations from the NIV since the vocabulary is modern. Genesis 1:11. Then God said, "Let the plants produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seeds in it, according to the various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seeds according to their kinds, bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God said, "It was good." Saw it was good. Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seeds in it. They will be yours." God saw all that he made, and it was very good. Okay, so we know where the marijuana plants come from. According to these people that claim the authority of God to rule your life, God gave us all the marijuana plants. So let me carry on here. Okay, so we know how God feels about the little pot plants he made. He was proud as Christ turning water into wine. They are just as pretty as all his other creations. Notice that God gave all the plants to living man and creatures. Laws, or more properly, corporate rules and regulations known as legislation for their chattel property, human resources, or corporate persons in corporate Canada are devised by the British Crown of Israel that owns the private ecclesiastical legal franchise bar associations practicing maritime law in our court systems. They are criminally out of their jurisdictions and using our courts to pillage us. Our country has been under attack through our own court system since 1867. The British Crown of Israel and their Jewish monarchs had their bar mitzvah association form a British corporation they called Canada. British is a Hebrew word. It means people of the covenant. They wrote their own corporate constitution, hired employees, and then proceeded to defraud the private citizens in this country under color or guise of law in our courts by usurping the right of Canadians to govern ourselves. When a child has an imaginary friend, we say it is cute. When an adult has an imaginary friend, we term them psychotic and delusional. But when a whole group of adults has the same imaginary friend, they call it a religion, and we let them rule our lives. The mess in the world today is essentially a continuation of an ancient religious war between Christians and Jews and other delusional psychos that has cost the lives of hundreds of millions of human resources. It appears the Jews have won the battle, though, in the nations they claim is their commonwealth that their God gave them, and their banks have inherited the earth. Jews use our own courts to wage war against us, and their written agenda of genocide against our nation is actually written down in the hate literature known as the Torah, which is a Hebrew word meaning the law. Read Deuteronomy 20 verses 10 to 20. Read Deuteronomy 28 verses 49 to 57. Read Leviticus 25 39 to 46. Read Genesis 32 22 to 32. Read Leviticus 21 16 to 23. Why is our government distributing this hate literature? Their authority to govern in Canada is supposedly derived from their God. This would be the same God as above that gave us the little marijuana plants. I know this because my Bible with the aforementioned text says the copyrights to the Bible are owned by the British Crown of Israel. This is the crown that says the aforementioned God gives them the right to rule us as Her Majesty in right of Canada and Her Majesty in right of insert province name here. As head of the Anglican Church and British Crown of Israel, Queen Elizabeth claims she has the God-given right to rule over the Dominion of Canada. I can't quite reconcile this with the fact that I was taught that 2 generations of my fellow countrymen laid down their lives to keep my country free. I quit pointing this out to my fellow free Canadians because every time I did, I was told if I didn't like following all the rules and regulations in this free country here, I could leave. I probably would have, except for the fact that all of my life I have risen with my hand over my glowing heart and pledged my true patriot love to the true north strong and free. One should not fall down on their oath to their country. Who voted this foreign queen head of state? How can our country be free and a dominion of a Jewish monarch? We never voted for her to be the Queen of Canada. The Archbishop of the Anglican Church appointed her to be the Queen of Canada. By whose authority? He claims God gives him the authority. Searching for divine inspiration and knowing the corporate Canada that rules me is founded upon principles recognized the supremacy of God and the rule of lawyers, I open Black's Law Dictionary and search for the meaning of free. There it lies before me. Free, not subject to the legal constraint or legislation of another. Jam on the brakes? You mean legislation is slavery? As in crimes against humanity slavery, bound in chains slavery, or debt peonage slavery, outlawed by all nations, frowned upon by Jesus when he taught the Lord's Prayer. Matthew 6:12. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Yes, you people that claim to be Christians, go and read Christ's prayer as he taught to pray to the good Lord. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. You live in a Christian nation? Well, there's your answer right there. Forgive all debts and we'll get on with our lives again. But I live in the most highly legislated society on the face of the earth. How can I be free and subject to so much legislation? How can I be free and ruled over by the head of the Anglican Church? Why am I compelled to stop for the army officers of a foreign church who want to see if I have marijuana in my car that their God gave to me? And why is this foreign-controlled army on our free highways in our free country in the first place? How can my country be free and a dominion? What's the Jew-Christian Bible say about freedom? Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Be therefore not bound into a yoke of slavery. Christ sets us free, and the foreign genetically Jewish monarch who wants to own us and wants us to bow down to their yoke of slavery? In order to judge a man for some malfeasance for using the marijuana God gave us, you have obviously judged that God has in some manner made a mistake in giving us the pot plants in the first place. Do omnipotent gods oxymoronically make mistakes? In the courtroom you will see the crest of authority. It says, "Deum androit," or God and my right. On their private ecclesiastical legal system army vehicles, you will see written, "Maintien le droit," maintain the right of God's chosen people to rule us. British is a Hebrew word meaning people of the covenant, and Israel means ruler of man and God. On the top of the same crest of authority on the birth certificate of an enslaved human resource in the province of British Columbia sits a wee little beastie with a crown on his beanie known as the Lion of Judah, the great beast of Revelation. This is the trademark of the British Crown Corporation that owns the productive labor of the human resource, and the treasury number of the resource is on the back of his birth certificate. Matthew 22:37-40. Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." Note that Christ says he has two commandments, and yet modern cross worshippers have adopted the 10 commandments of the Jews from the Torah. They have abandoned the New Testament for the Old Testament and lost the war. Okay, so now why do we have these divine foreign rulers from England, the British Crown of Israel, enforcing 4 million codified rules and regulations in the name of God in our country? Queen Elizabeth is obviously in gross violation of the oath she swore to the Archbishop of the Anglican Church when he declared her to be the Queen and have dominion over our free country. Does this mean that the people that derive their source of authority from her no longer possess that same authority? What authority, one might ask, in the first place, since the Secretariat of the Commonwealth of Nations has made it clear that the designation of Queen of Canada is titular only, and she possesses no executive authority in Canada. Hang on, now there is a real quandary. From the Governor General on down, these people are ruling our lives with a de facto government whose authority is titular only and possesses no legal authority. Therein, my friends, is the real crux of the situation, so I'll call this part 1 of my missive, God busted by the RCMP for growing pot, and I'll make a second part to continue this. Thank you very much. Peace. Love you all.